Which paradox just mindfucks a person? Brace paradox from Wiki. The observation that adding one or more roads to a road network can end up impeding overall traffic flow through it. The paradox was postulated in 1968 by German mathematician Dietrich Brace, who noticed that adding a road to a particular congested road traffic network would increase overall journey time. Very evident in cities, skylines. The bane of my cities in that game. The more roads, the more traffic. So I know this is just a silly thing, but at my old work, my department was food service. In our prep room, you had to always wear an apron. Always, no exception. When leaving the prep room, you had to take your apron off to prevent cross-contamination. The bosses were trying to figure out where to put the hooks. Inside in the back of the door, or outside on the wall. Edit. Always proofread before posting. Feels like there should have been an anteroom between prep room and the larger room with apron hooks. This page is intentionally left blank. Page. The page isn't even blank anymore. I actually saw one in a textbook before that said, this page intentionally no longer blank. My favorite phrase that got published in an advanced math book. In case there is danger of no confusion. The Banach-Tarski paradox is one hell of a mindfuck. It's basically taking something and rearranging it to form another exact copy of itself while still having the complete original. Like taking a sphere, which has infinite points on it, and drawing line from every point on its surface to the center, or the core of the sphere. Then you separate the lines from the sphere. But because there is infinite points, you now have an exact copy of the original sphere. It's kind of hard to explain here, so just watch the Vsauce video on it for a more in-depth explanation. One anagram of Banach-Tarski that I like is Banach-Tarski. Banach-Tarski also thanks Baraci. Fry becoming his own grandpa. He did do the nasty and the pasty. Pass nastification. The halting probable, monsieur. You cannot create an algorithm that looks at a different algorithm and its input, then decide whether or not that algorithm will reach the end. This is too complicated to prove in a single Reddit comment, so edit. Oh, bugger, I'll prove it myself. Consider this scenario. Algorithm P is a copier. Give an input, and it will output that same thing as two separate outputs. Algorithm H is the algorithm that predicts whether a different algorithm will reach the end. It accepts two inputs and outputs, yes, if the algorithm halts, and no, if the algorithm doesn't halt. Algorithm F is algorithms that says, hello, if it's given the input, no. It gets stuck in an infinite loop if it's given the input, yes. Now combine all three of these algorithms in order to make algorithm X. Feed algorithm X as the input to algorithm X. First thing that will happen is that algorithm P will spit out two copies of algorithm X and gives them to algorithm H. Algorithm H now has to decide whether algorithm X will halt if given algorithm X. If algorithm H says yes, it will cause algorithm F to get stuck, and therefore X will not halt. If algorithm H says no, it will cause algorithm F to just say hello, and therefore X will not halt. Either way, algorithm H is wrong. It's impossible to design an algorithm that can correctly predict whether any arbitrary algorithm will halt given a given input. Love a bit of computerify, the UK triple lock that people moving to the UK experience. An AMP #X200B. Need proof of address and photographic ID to open a bank account. Need a bank account and photographic ID to rent a place. Need a bank account and an address to get sent your photographic ID and AMP #X200B. Checkmate atheists. This is like when I went online to schedule an appointment at the Apple Store because my phone wouldn't turn on, and they sent me a verification text to my phone to confirm it was me telling them that my phone won't turn on. I cancelled my landline back in the mid-90s. even though we only had one cell phone in the house, over a similar battle with the phone company. Our landline was dead, so we walked to the nearest store and called the phone company. They told us that they couldn't schedule a technician to come out until we called, and from the phone that was having the issue. The coastline paradox: the more accurately you measure a coastline, the longer it gets. To infinity. I have 2 comments, questions. 1. It couldn't possibly be to infinity, right? Even if you measure every grain of sand, the coastline will significantly grow, but it is still finite. You can't measure a coastline perfectly accurately, because it's not static. Tides and water levels are always changing. I think the coastline part is just an example of something tangible with fractal-like qualities. To make the concept more understandable, it might help to think of measuring the perimeter of the famous Mandelbrot fractal set in all its infinite detail. The area of the set is clearly bounded and finite, but the perimeter is not. One of my favorites is Zeno's paradox. In order to leave my apartment, just for example, I have to walk halfway to my front door. Then I have to walk half the remaining distance. Then half that distance, ad infinitum, monsieur. In theory, I should never be able to reach the door. Now I love this paradox, because we've actually solved it. It was a lively, well-discussed debate for millennia. At least a few early thinkers were convinced that motion was an illusion because of it. It was so persuasive an argument that people doubted their senses. Then Leibniz developed calculus, and we realized that infinite sums can have finite solutions. Paradox resolved. It makes me wonder what calculus we are missing to resolve some of these others. Edit. A lot more people have strong opinions about Zeno's paradox than I thought. To address common comments. 1. Yes, it's Zeno, not Zeno. Blame autocorrect in my own fraught relationship with homophones. Yes, there are 3 of them, monsieur. If you're getting hung up on the walking example, think of an arrow being shot at a fleeing target. First, the arrow has to get to where the target was. But at that point, the target has moved, so the arrow has to cover that new distance, but by then, the target has moved again, etc. So the arrow gets infinitesimally closer to the target, but doesn't ever reach it. Okay, you think you could have solved it if you were living in ancient Greece. I profoundly regret that you weren't born back then to catapult our understanding 2 millennia into the future. Yes, I agree, Diogenes was a badass. I hope this covers everything. Reminds me of a joke. An amp, #X200B, an engineer, a physicist, and a mathematician are at a bar and see a beautiful woman across the room, monsieur. They're all too nervous to talk to her, so the physicist devises a plan to work up the necessary courage. Walk half the distance from him to her, then half the remaining distance, and again, and again, and again. The mathematician says it won't work because they will never actually get to her. The engineer says, well, it's close enough for practical purposes. An infinite number of mathematicians walk into a bar. The first orders a drink, the second orders half a drink, the third orders a quarter of a drink, the fourth orders an eighth of a drink. The bartender pours 2 drinks and says, you guys really ought to know your limits. Pinocchio says, my nose will grow after I finish this sentence, does it? Depends on if lying is a necessary condition for growth or merely a sufficient one. I frequently see Pinocchio resolved based on the intent of the speaker to tell the truth or lie. Otherwise, his curse can be used to learn absolute truths you have no way of proving. It could even speculate about future events if X will do Y is considered a true or false statement. And GT. It could even speculate about future events if X will do Y is considered a true or false statement. It's probably not the original intent, but this interpretation is so much cooler. I'm gonna ask Pinocchio questions about all the conspiracy theories I've ever heard to find out if they're real or not. The ship of Theseus always kind of fucked me. So, there's this Greek dude called Theseus, and he's on a very long boat trip home. His ship needs repair. They stop, replace a few rotten boards, and continue. Due to the particularly strenuous nature of this very long trip, several more of these stops for repairs are made, until, by the very end, not a single board from the original vessel remains. Is this still the same vessel? If not, when did it cease to be? Additionally, devoted followers of Theseus saved all of the worn pieces as they were replaced, and rebuilt the ship with them. Monsieur. Now, which ship is truly the ship of Theseus? Seems to be a great discussion piece, but in the end it comes down to interpretation. The ship simply underwent mitosis and divided into two daughter ships. The unexpected hanging paradox. A prisoner is sentenced to death, and he is told that he will be hanged on a day next week, and on a day he won't be expecting it. The prisoner thinks to himself, well, if they hang me on Saturday, then I will expect it because there is no other possible day. So it won't be on Saturday. Then he realizes, well, it won't be Friday either, because I know that if I make it to Friday, they won't hang me on Saturday. So it has to be Friday, which means that they won't hang him on a Friday. He realizes this logic would continue for each day of the week, and so he concludes that there is no possible day for them to hang him unexpectedly. So he thinks they must not plan to hang him, Monsieur. On Wednesday they hang him, and he is completely surprised. The more you think about this paradox, the less sense it makes.